Morning, and thank you all for waking up and joining us today for a conversation about America's energy future. My name is James Dozier. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions. And I don't know about you, but I'm extremely energized to be here this morning to hear from our great lineup of speakers and because of the impressive audience of policy leaders and advocates we have joining us today. Before we get started, I do want to take care of a couple housekeeping items. First of all, if you are into social media and you're on Twitter or Facebook, please use the hashtag EnergyWakeUp to share information from today's panel and conversation. Also, if you do have a cell phone, make sure that we turn the ringers off this morning. I also want to thank our co-hosts, the Conservation Leadership Council and Concord 51, for helping make this event happen today. And I also want to thank our volunteers and the staff of the Reserve Officers Association who woke up even earlier than the rest of us to make sure everything was set up. And of course, I would also like to thank Senator Kelly Ayotte, Congressman Chris Gibson, and the panel of policy experts that you'll hear from later this morning. This morning, we are gathered to discuss the opportunities ahead to advance smart, free market policies that will create job opportunities, protect our tax dollars, and preserve our air and water for future generations. I have to say it's an exciting time in Washington to be doing this work because I think the recent elections have created an opportunity and I would say a responsibility for robust conservative leadership on the future of American energy and environmental policy. And we are lucky to have allies like Senator Ayotte and Congressman Gibson in the Congress who are working to help advance these meaningful conservative solutions. Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions was founded to promote conservative leadership and policies that advocate for responsible energy development, American prosperity, and the conservation of our natural resources. I feel confident in saying that most of us in this room will probably agree that we can't protect the environment by wrapping it up in red tape, but we can protect it through innovation in new technologies that can bring more clean energy sources like nuclear, natural gas, wind, and solar to market, while finding new ways to limit harmful emissions like carbon in our air. Americans believe that there is a common sense middle ground between doing nothing and extreme regulation. Current headlines and recent polling confirm that energy policy and the preservation of our climate are important to a broad bipartisan array of voters. And how we as Republicans choose to engage on this issue will impact the party and the country in the near term, not just the distant future. So that's why I believe that we do need more conservative leaders like Senator Kelly Ayotte, who is promoting solutions that will maximize America's abundant sources of energy while ensuring that we are using that energy in a smart and efficient way. She knows that the ingenuity of American enterprise, not burdensome regulation, will bring more American-made energy to market. It will foster renewed investments in research, development, and infrastructure, and grow our economy. Senator Ayotte has been fighting for common sense conservative values ever since she was first elected to the U.S. Senate in 2010, which was her first run for elected office. And when I say run, I mean that literally. She's an avid runner. And while doing some research, I came across a TV ad where she actually filmed a campaign commercial at running what, to me, was a fairly intense pace. Prior to her election, Senator Ayotte served as New Hampshire's Attorney General. She was first appointed by a Republican governor and reappointed twice by his Democratic successor. She worked her way up to the top job, starting out as a prosecutor, serving as the chief of the state's homicide unit, and as Deputy Attorney General. And for those of us who watch her work in the Senate know that every day she brings that prosecutor's heart and drive to find the truth in the United States Senate. As an aside, while doing my research for today, I learned many interesting facts beyond the senator's very impressive resume. She served as the editor of the Villanova Environmental Law Journal, which is very relevant to today's conversation. She was a collegiate skier on top of being an avid runner. She's the captain of the Congressional Women's Softball team, and her small business background also includes snowplow operations, so I might have to call you in the next DC snowstorm. With that, it is my honor to introduce to you a conservative leader, a champion of the Granite State's great outdoors, United States Senator Kelly Ayotte.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, James, for that kind introduction. I'm so glad to be here with all of you today, and I really want to thank Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions, Concord 51, and the Conservation Leadership Coalition for hosting this. Let me just start with this proposition. I think, like many issues in Washington, that this issue is one where the arguments too often come down to either we protect the environment or we have energy development and jobs. And I think that this sort of dichotomy misses the point. And that's why this group is so important and what you're all doing today. Because I firmly believe that our environment is a treasure. It is such an important resource for our country, not only in terms of the strength of America going forward, but that it is not mutually exclusive to say that we can use the best technology and develop the best technology available to have energy security, energy independence for this country, and responsibly develop energy while also protecting the environment. And what I would like to see happen is that the arguments, and I think that all of you in this room, myself included, have an opportunity to change this discussion in Washington. This is not an either-or proposition when it comes to ensuring that we can preserve the natural beauty of the United States of America. And I know that because I come from such a beautiful, beautiful state, New Hampshire, where the environment and our natural resources are not only part of our heritage and part of who we are in the live free or die state, but also such an important part of our economy. And I think that that has to be factored into all of this. If you look at the outdoor recreation industry and what it brings to the economy of the United States of America, preserving the natural beauty of our country and our natural resources is very important in terms of jobs as well. So I'm glad to be here to engage in this discussion. And I do think that there are opportunities with the new Congress coming in, especially for Republicans, to understand that as Republicans, we should be for preserving our natural resources, and that we should be able to offer solutions to the American people that are market-based, that are based on investing in research to develop the very next best technology as to how we responsibly develop our resources, whether it's natural gas, whether it's oil, whether it's renewable opportunities that we should be investing in, and ensuring that that type of research and technology and encouraging the private sector to develop that technology is a priority of ours. And also when the technology is developed, to ensure that it is being used. It is being used to reduce emissions. It is being used to ensure that we have clean air and clean water, because that's one of the things that the United States of America is incredibly good at. We come up with the new ideas here. We have been an innovative nation, and if you look at other countries around the world that we're competing with economically, whether it's China or other types of countries, they're always looking to us for the new ideas. And the reality is, unlike most issues around the world, whether it's our national security policy or in terms of economic strength, and on this issue, America does need to be the leader. Because without American leadership, we all understand that often things don't happen. And we need, I think, not only as I'm a robust believer in, as you probably follow my work in the Senate, I serve on the Armed Services Committee, on the role of America in the world in terms of our foreign policy and our leadership role. But I also believe that that role, that opportunity and that importance of our role when it comes to protecting the natural resources of America and the world is one that we need to seize as well and acknowledge who we are. There are some ideas that I think I've been supportive of that very much could move in this next Congress. And the foremost one is really the Portman-Shaheen Energy Savings and Industrial Competitiveness Act. I know that you've heard from Senator Portman in the past, this group, and I do think that this is a bill, as we look in the coming Congress, that while it kind of got stymied in the last Congress, mostly around Senate procedure, the leader of the Senate Senator McConnell has decided that we're going to operate the Senate and really get the Senate functioning again. And I think it will benefit this bill in the sense that the reason it got pulled from the floor before is because there was a lack of an amendment process. And so this is one I would put top on the list of what can we get done in the coming Congress. I'm proud to be a supporter of the bill. The bill seeks to improve energy efficiency in building codes by calling on the Department of Energy to bring up to date its model building energy codes for both residential and commercial spaces. I'm also proud to be the sponsor of an amendment that is within that bill with Michael Bennett, and he and I have, that has been incorporated in the bill. We've also introduced it as a standalone bill called the Better Buildings Act, and it's a no-cost legislation that would create a voluntary tenant star certification to encourage commercial tenants to implement cost-effective measures that will help reduce energy consumption and ultimately utility costs for businesses. And this is really a prime example where I can tell you when I travel around my state, so many of our businesses are really looking to new ways, especially as they're facing higher energy costs, to deploy renewable resources, to really look at how can we install in our buildings and in our facilities energy efficiency and really update the buildings. And it's been a matter of cost savings for them. And it has the added benefit of also protecting the environment. So these are the win-win types of situations that I think as policymakers we have to create the right dynamic to encourage as we look at regulatory policy, as we look at tax policy, and I think this is a bill that is a good starting point that we could move. I also firmly believe that we need to develop our domestic energy resources. And when we do that, we need to do it using the best technology available to ensure that we are minimizing the impact on our environment. So I believe, I've supported the development of the Keystone Pipeline, and I expect in the next Congress, obviously, we'll be discussing that issue. But I also think there's an opportunity as we move on that project that has been delayed, I think often for political reasons, for over 6 years, to think about and couple it with issues like the energy efficiency legislation. So I think it will be interesting as we vote on measures to develop our resources, what else are we focusing on? And that is this issue of ensuring that we're looking at conservation, energy efficiency, developing renewables as well. So that is an opportunity as you think about a project like Keystone coming to the floor, where you will see a robust amendment process where I think there's an opportunity to bring forward some other ideas that not only could we pass Keystone, but also really develop some other legislative ideas that would be helpful to energy efficiency and protecting the environment. Now, one thing that I firmly believe in is that this is a matter of national security for us. This is a matter of prosperity for us, that this energy independence issue is one that is going to ensure, I think, and resonates very well with the American people, that the more we are developing all of our resources, whether it's renewables, investing in renewables, and more cost-efficient ways to use them and make them more accessible for your average American, developing our natural gas resources, oil, North American energy independence, whether it's a project like Keystone. This is an issue that your average American understands. It's not just a jobs issue. It's not just a protect the environment issue. It's a security issue for us, and that's why we all have a stake in it. And we can transition away from conventional fuels to renewable sources in a way that will strengthen our economy and create jobs, and also strengthen the security of America. To do so, we must foster a pro-business environment to develop new clean energy technologies, enhance conservation initiatives, invest in technology. One of the things the government does, I think, in ways that are helpful to everyone is research. Really investing in research that everyone can benefit from. And this area really cries for more research investment to make sure that we're investing and have the ability of everyone to benefit from the best technology. We need to encourage the development of all renewable, clean, and sustainable energy sources: wind, solar, hydropower, geothermal, and biomass. And frankly, really put, I think, energy sources on a level playing field, and ensure that we are giving all energy sources an opportunity to develop, and not just our traditional thinking about the extraction of gas and oil. And I think we have an opportunity to do that in a way that Americans will appreciate. In terms of looking at tax reform and regulatory reform. I also believe that if we want to have a strong energy future, we have to continue to invest and do it in a much better way in our workforce. And that means, I'm the co-sponsor of a bill with Chris Coons. That means in manufacturing and other areas, really thinking about our workforce having the right skills. As we develop new technologies, the type of workforce that we need when it comes to all types of manufacturing, but also energy development, is a highly trained workforce. And so going hand in hand, I think a role that government can play is not only investing in research, ensuring that we're passing policies that allow development of all energy, but also ensuring that that technology, we have that trained workforce available to use that technology. And the bill that Chris and I have is called the Manufacturing Skills Act. It's paid for. It's a competitive grant program that will help states and localities really make the decisions, as opposed to Washington, as to how to invest in a 21st century manufacturing training programs, which I think will be key as we look at developing the technology on the energy front. And when it comes to protecting our environment, I've been a strong supporter of the Land and Water Conservation Fund. I think that this fund has been integral to my state, I can tell you, in terms of preserving lands for access to the enjoyment of the people of New Hampshire, for multi-use and preserving really some of the most beautiful lands in our state. And it has bipartisan support. It's a very important fund. It's going to be coming up for reauthorization. And I think as Republicans, we should be championing the protection of our most precious lands as we think about how we develop energy in a responsible way that makes us independent from some of the countries that obviously we don't want to continue to be dependent on. And so I hope that I'll find strong support with some of my colleagues. I know that I already have some champions on the Land and Water Conservation Fund. People like Richard Burr have long been a supporter of it. So I hope all of you in this room will help us extend that fund, and really, I hope, also make the use of the fund more efficient than it is now. One thing we can do as Republicans is that often the bureaucracy makes it the resources that go into complying with the bureaucracy diminish the resources we can actually use, whether it's to preserve land or to do other things. And as the Republicans take over in the Senate, I hope we have vigorous oversight to ensure that every program, that the maximum number of dollars are going to what we're trying to accomplish, including the preservation of land. And I think we have some opportunities there. As I have looked at preserving our natural resources, I have to be honest with you, there have been times I've disagreed with our party. On several occasions, for example, the cross-air pollution the cross-border pollution regulations that I voted against as we look at the cross-state air rule, the reduction of those regulations. And the reason that I did that, I have a long history at this coming before this Congress. When I was Attorney General of the state of New Hampshire, these were issues that I pursued vigorously. And in New Hampshire, for example, we have already gone down the road of, for example, our coal-fired plant installing the scrubbers and the best technology in the state to ensure that we're doing the best to reduce emissions. And as you look at this rule, this issue for a state like New Hampshire is that we don't want to be the tailpipe for the Midwest. And so I think that I'm hoping that as we look as a party at these issues, we can look at the entire country. We can understand that when the technology exists, we should be working with the private sector to embrace the technology and to install and to ensure how do we get it installed in a realistic way, but that protects our environment instead of always fighting the technology. And that's how I looked at really what came before the Congress, which was a resolution of disapproval for that regulation. I can say the same thing for mercury. Despite efforts in New Hampshire to reduce harmful mercury pollution from in-state sources, we have seen that mercury really from out-of-state and really from the Midwest power plants, I'm not picking on them, but that's sort of where it lands in my state, so I have to think about it. That, to me, without a national standard, a state like New Hampshire would not be able to fully achieve the necessary reductions to protect our children and our air and water from mercury. And as you know, mercury is an issue that deals with hot spots, and you can't use a trading system in the way that you can with other toxic emissions. So on that one, I have to say I disagreed with repealing that as well. As I look at the coming regulations that the administration is proposing, please know that I'm going to take a very pragmatic approach on this. If we can ensure that we're deploying the best technology to keep our environment clean, while ensuring that we can still develop energy responsibly, I'm going to support ensuring that that best technology is deployed to protect our air, our water, our environment, because I think that it is our future. And once we lose that, we can't get that back so easily, and we may not be able to get it back at all. And one thing that I hope we will do as we look at some of the proposals that the administration is putting forward is that the need to understand that if we sit on the sidelines on these proposals, that these proposals, in fact, become the law through regulators instead of members of Congress actually sitting down with the stakeholders, actually sitting down with the business community, sitting down with the conservation groups, and finding a legislative, long-term, responsible, permanent solution that protects our air, that protects our water. And so I want to say to all of you, count me in as someone who, as we look at these regulations, I would prefer, rather than us always being in a battle against the administrations here, the Congress is here, that we actually work together and come up with longer-term solutions. Because what ends up happening is that these regulations get proposed, right? They get challenged. They come before the Congress, and then those in the business community, you don't know what the rules are. You have uncertainty. And those in the environmental community are saying to themselves, well, we may want this regulation, but will it be in place for the long term? Will we be able to have a longer-term solution toward what we are trying to accomplish? So one thing I think that we can move as we move forward on these issues is to really think about if we want to do everything by allowing just the regulators and Congress never weighing in a substantive way on matters, then you're going to have this sort of cyclical changes and not long-term solutions, because they can change with an administration. And we have seen that happen. And that doesn't benefit the country. It doesn't benefit longer-term thinking about energy development, about protecting the environment. And so I hope all of you in this room, and count me in on it, that we actually can get to legislating on some of these issues, rather than just having a fight on what we agree or disagree with what the administration has proposed. Because in that way, I think we are abdicating our responsibility, and we are missing an opportunity. We're missing an opportunity as we think about long-term energy policy for this country that will help our economy, that will protect our security, that will protect our environment. And that's only going to happen if all the stakeholders come together and we actually are willing to take these issues up in Congress, not just we disapprove of this. What's your alternative? What is your alternative that is going to make a difference, that's going to ensure that we can impose market-based solutions where we have everyone together and all the stakeholders together? That's when we will make a difference, and that is where this discussion has to go. If we continue the either-or discussion, we are not doing what we should do for the United States of America and the opportunities we have in this great country. So I thank you for having me today, and I appreciate the discussion.